Oh God, hang on. I can't see in the map to press got it. There you go, I've got it. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to the inaugural Bear Creek Zoom thing. We're launching our new book, which Mark has written. You know what? It's so hot.
Hooray!
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're launching the new book on Bear Creek Press. There it is. It's called Hike. It's incredibly weird, as you'd expect. It's incredibly beautiful, as you'd expect, from someone of Mark's caliber. And we're all just gathered basically to have a little bit of a celebration because the book's officially on sale. And I've asked some really good writers to read. We're going to stay for about an hour, have some fun. Mark's going to read from Hike. I will probably say something at some point, but I'm going to sort of leave it quite organic. And I actually don't have anything else to say. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Mark. Mark, would you like to read from your wonderful book?
Yes, before I do, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to Stu for making this book. I was going to do lots of things in character, and now I just feel like, oh, it's really sweet, and I can't pretend to be the fake Mark Ward. I'll just be the real me. This is the fake Mark Ward, but fake Mark Ward went to Lloyd's supermarket and got stood up by the checkout girls. That's what happened. So I just want to say thank you to Stu for believing in this. I wrote this on spec and the whole book on spec and sent it to Stu, and he was like, yes, keep writing it. Yes, keep writing it. It was terrifying to write a whole book and not know if it was going to get published, because I was like, if Stu doesn't like this, I'm in trouble, because this is all Bear Creek. But he did, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So I'm going to read the first chapter. So there's 6 chapters. Downtown to Lemon Gulch to the dunes to the Cave Archipelago to the depot to the cabin, and the cabin back to downtown. So 1, and half of it's in haiku and half of it's in prose. 1, downtown to Lemon Gulch. Getting off the bus, a squall of sulfur hits us. Bear Creek says hello. I thought it was wind whipping through the empty streets. The town was keening. Sai, walking ahead, says the road's full of locals. We are out of sync. Downtown's abandoned, flunking the tutorial. Make the right choices. Some shops are open. The checkout girls at Lloyd's wait for fresh flattery. A pack of dogs snarl in unison, windows fill with alerted eyes. Invisible walls knock us back, the sky changes hue like a mood ring. The echoing snarls guide us around barriers, the dogs are hiding. Main Street stretches out. Sai says we shouldn't engage with its defenses. Close your eyes and walk. Feel the wind settle. The dogs still. People return. Sai hadn't explained exactly why he needed to go back. From what I'd gathered, it happened every 2 years and that he needed to take a few weeks off work to recover. That's where we met, at work. Sai was a freelance photographer at the magazine I wrote for, travel articles mostly, before being put on staff like me. We were work friends, but he became full-time after he became full-time, we got closer. He even slept on my sofa for a couple of nights when he was in between places. And it was then, after a night of accidentally heavy drinking, you know, those nights where you don't realize how drunk you are until it's way too late, that he told me about Bear Creek, where he lived for 3 years as a teenager. And then he spent 3 days trying to deny it. Whilst I'm not, say, Truman Capote with his ability to never take notes and regurgitate entire conversations, I do have a pretty good memory and quoted back enough detail that he gave up the charade. When he realized what he said, he had bargained on the booze to obliterate it, but I never forget anything when I'm drunk, a curse and a blessing. I remember every word that people later tried to retract, remember their faces given over to abandon, remember those moments when their hands and eyes betrayed them. So when he told me that he was taking some time off, I knew where he was going, and I wanted in. It nearly broke up our friendship. I was admittedly being obstinate, but from the whispers I had heard of this place, I knew this was somewhere I needed to see. And who better to guide me but a former resident? He kept telling me how dangerous it was, that it wasn't worth it. But the two photographs that I managed to find, weirdly, there's next to nothing online about it, made the place look picturesque, green flowing hills, what looked like a beautiful seaside, and overall good vibes. That's not accurate, Sai said. Of course it isn't. I mean, there's a whole lot more to a town than two pictures. No, he said, that's literally a different town. The council thought they could attract visitors if they stole some visuals and put their name on it. What surprised me, though, was that later that night, after I'd resigned myself to not going, he said I could come. He told me I needed to listen to him and be very careful. And I said, sure, of course, that's why I'm going with you. He looked haunted, and I realized he'd said yes because he didn't want to go back there alone. Main Street, when it came into focus, seemed utterly normal. Locals bustled in and out of shops. People were chatting over coffee and sitting outdoors. Children ran, screaming. I could feel the dogs were closer, but I still couldn't see them. I was going to ask about them when somebody shouted at Sai from across the sidewalk. Sai, you're back. Is it that time already? A sturdy woman with two small kids crossed over and gave him a big hug. The two children, a boy and a girl around 4, stared at me as we 3 patiently waited, not knowing the others involved. The little girl had a doll with long blonde hair, and the little boy had its twin. The doll's arms were covered with what looked like tribal tattoos, and the children held out their dolls so I could see them clearer. The dark river snakes across their bodies. Their eyes glow carnelian. Sai and his friend amiably chatted away, catching up, and the children's eyes shifted to behind me. They broke out into wide smiles. It was something they'd never seen before. A man was selling snow globes. Bear Creek Crystal, his banner said. There were about 15 globes laid out on a trestle table, each depicting a different area. They were beautiful. I gestured, asking if it was okay to touch, and he smiled. I crouched down to see them. One showed Main Street from right where we were standing. Another was a beautiful bay, yet another was a covered bridge that somehow, on a track perhaps, featured cars going into it. I kept waiting for them to reappear at the other side, but they never did. The most beautiful globe showed a forest, thick, dark green trees amid a sea of gorse. I had never seen anything so exquisite. I picked it up. I push through the crowd. The yellow furs cheers me on. I reach for the sky. So I gripped my wrist, put it down. All around me, overlaying Main Street, were flowers, and I felt myself stretching, shooting towards the sky. Sai got right in my face, so all I could see was him. Put it down. I put it down. The man exhaled, exasperated, and tutted. Sai pulled me down the street. It was brighter. The clouds that had been threatening rain had dissipated, and the sun shone down high in its kingdom. You can't just go around touching things. They know you're a tourist. I had been in the forest. I had been the forest. I'm sorry, Sai. We reached the end of the street. I asked him where the woman went. Janet, she had to get her kids home. They tried to wake you, but after half an hour, they gave up. I laughed. Sai looked at me, his face stony, hard. We walked down some cookie cutter residential streets. You need to listen to me, okay? Okay, I'm sorry. The streets gave way to a large park, fields that stretched out in all directions with a scattering of trees. After a while, the park just stopped. We had reached its edge. Sai gestured to look below. We were atop one side of a ravine, Lemon Gulch. It's something everyone should see. He set towards a path I hadn't noticed. Steps were carved out from the face of the cliff. There's nothing to hold on to, so be careful. As Sai worked his way down, the sheer amount of time the staircase would have taken to create. He looked out onto Lemon Gulch, walking the clearly familiar steps with ease, and for the first time since we arrived, he seemed happy. Thank you.
Thanks,
I'm
Mark.
going off mic to clap.
Yeah, that was great. That was really
Fantastic,
great.
Mark.
So I just want to say a little thing about the book. It's very good, obviously, as you can probably tell. Mark thinks he's very lucky to be published by us. It's the other way around. We're extremely lucky to have Mark on board. I just want to say a little bit as well, because she's not here, about Sarah, who does the covers. She's... Oh, I'm just trying to get it censored. She's an incredible artist. One of the prerequisites for signing on with Bear Creek Press is that she does the cover for everyone. The reason being, I just love her, and she does the Grizzly, the comic for Bear Creek. If this is your first time with Bear Creek, go to welcometobearcreek.com and look at the Grizzly. She does those comics. She does album covers, film covers, everything. She categorically would not come on here because she hates anything like this. So I'm bigging her up. I'll leave a link to her Twitter and Instagram. I'll pin a tweet on the Bear Creek thing, and you should all go and follow her, and also give her work if you're in a position to give her work, because I know she struggles all the time, and she's just a gem. So that's Sarah.
If I'm going to interrupt before you go any further and say on that note as well, that Stu runs this entire enterprise on a shoestring on his own, putting in time and hours and everything. So in the same manner, if you have a few bob, please send it to him to support all of the amazing work that he's doing.
Yes, please. The dogs are starving. So, well, you saw it, didn't you? You saw the dog. She's skin and bones. Oh, hi, she's here now. Okay, so next up is Kyle. Kyle is also going to be publishing with us. I'm very excited about this because anyone who's ever read Kyle knows that he's just an incredible writer. I'm very lucky that he chose with us.
That's my fiance. She's out of town this weekend. She's unhinged.
I don't really have much else to say. I'm going to hand it over to Kyle. I don't know what people are reading tonight because I've just left it up to everyone, so I'm just very much enjoying myself at the same time. So Kyle, just do a little intro and then go nuts.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, just thank you for Stuart and Mark for having me. I'm going to read something that's not out yet. So if you read my stuff before, this is not going to be one of those things. This is a story that is going to be coming out in the Taco Bell Quarterly, which is coming out not this coming week, but the following. And yeah, I wrote this piece especially because for Allie's grandma, my fiance's grandma, who were kind of scared to show her any of my writing. And so I wanted to write a piece that I thought was as much of what I do, but without any swear words. And so this is what came up of that, amongst other things too. So this is called At This Week's Meeting of the Young Mountain Movers. At this week's meeting of the Young Mountain Movers, there would be no talk, Pastor Matt said. Instead, we would be doing an exercise. This, he said, gesturing to a circle of chairs in the center of the room covered with brown butcher paper and held together with painter's tape, was the cave. What's in there, Robin Dernberger asked. The answer, Pastor Matt said. The answer to what? Greg Horn asked. To the only question there is, Pastor Matt said. We went into the cave and sat down in a circle. Pastor Matt tugged his ball cap low and opened in prayer. He led us in singing a church song and then another one. After he put his guitar down, he looked up at us with shiny eyes. Right now, there are kids just like you trapped in a cave just like this. Just like this, Jeremy Hauser asked, poking at the brown butcher paper. On the other side of the world, Pastor Matt said. He told us to close our eyes. Now imagine it. You're all just messing around with your coach, and that's me. I'm your coach, and we're all a team of some sort, okay? And we do this all the time, just explore together. Except this time it happens in a way where we can't leave, so now we're trapped, and we can't, Get out. I can get out, Greg Horn said, lifting a corner of the butcher paper. I can too, said Jeremy Hauser, trying to peel off the painter's tape without tearing it. Sorry, he said, tearing it. Pastor Matt reminded everyone that our eyes were supposed to be closed and described our surroundings and how dire our situation was. Do you feel it, he said, his voice shaking slightly, how close death is in this place? Can you smell its sulfur breath? And it's just very uncomfortable too, cold, wet. You're miserable is what it comes down to. I mean, there's no hope. So every breath is one more closer to, dying. And I mean, that fact is staring you right in the face. So now you're basically panicking, right? And remember death's hot breath? Well, now it's closer. And Horn interrupted by making a long and loud farting sound with his palms and lips. Pastor Matt bowed his head and waited for the laughter to peter out. He looked around at each of our faces and smiled thinly. See, now I'm actually glad you did that, because that's one way to deal with it, I suppose. Like it's all a big joke. But tell me, Greg, what do you see when you close your eyes? What special treatment do your farts buy you in the cave? Think about it. I'm being serious. None, I guess, Greg Horn said after thinking about it. None, Pastor Matt repeated with his eyes closed. Pastor Matt, Robin Dernberger said, my mom is doing the snack this week and she texted me that she's here with a bunch of Taco Bell and that she needs help carrying and that she's parking the loading zone out back. Darn it, Pastor Matt said, opening his eyes and looking at his watch. Okay, well, darn it. Wait, don't all go. Just 1 second. Okay, so the cave is really the world because, well, that's the lesson, okay? So please remember to pray for those boys in Thailand, yes, but when they get out of their cave, there's gonna be another one, yeah? Because the cave is the world, do you get that? It's all one big cave and that's why, okay guys, yeah, tear it up, that's right, but you get it, right? Because what's really outside the cave is heaven. And that's really what we're going after because we're gonna get rescued. That's the Jesus part. Everyone gets that, right? Rachel, explain it back to me. Do you mean Rachel P or Rachel W? Someone asked. Rachel P is at her dad's this week, someone else said. Then I mean the only Rachel here today, Pastor Matt said in a sharp voice. Everyone stopped and looked at him. Rachel Palmer's eyes went wide and darting. That Jesus saves us from the cave, she said. Yes, basically, Pastor Matt said, standing and adjusting the brim of his ball cap. He looked around at the torn and crushed paper. Yes, that's basically it, he said. Greg Horn lingered as the rest of the group rushed out the double doors. Pastor Matt, I think I have a question, he said. How do we know what's outside the cave? Pastor Matt was collecting scraps of brown butcher paper in a garbage bag. It's, do you do metaphors in school yet? Okay, well, it's one of those. It's pretend to make a point. So it's not a real cave after we die? Pastor Matt turned to face him. No. Life is the cave, Greg. The world is the cave. And the cave after that, it's heaven because of Easter, right? Yeah, Greg Horn said, but I think I still have a question though, because I think, okay, so how do we know? Like if our whole lives are in the cave, then how do we know what's outside of it is even better or different? Like what if after this cave, there's just another cave? Or what if it's just nothing? Pastor Matt looked into his garbage bag and frowned. He cleared his throat and said, well, but didn't say anything after. His forehead creased. He stayed like that for a long moment. Eventually, he bent down and returned to picking up the shreds of paper. Greg Horn started to leave and was almost out the door before Pastor Matt said, Greg, hold on a second. When he looked back, Pastor Matt's eyes were shining. Because of the Bible, Pastor Matt said in a cracked voice, because that's what it says. I mean, there's also the, well, I'm forgetting it right now for some reason. I mean, I don't know really. I mean, I'm sorry, I guess. He swallowed. Does that answer your question? Greg Horn said it did. Courtney Cousins spilled her Baja Blast and Kenny Lucas ate 7 soft tacos before getting sick in the volleyball court. And Sharon Hutchinson was pulled aside for a quick chat about being too cliquey and why it's so important to include girls like Kathy Fleming and boys like Gary Medina because they maybe don't have as many friends at their schools. So Mountain Movers becomes a really important part of their week and to just keep that in mind for next time. And when Pastor Matt was bending down to say this, he took off his ball cap to look Sharon Hutchinson in the eye. And when he did, she saw that his hair was different in a way that made her feel sad. Come on, Pastor Matt said, quickly putting the ball cap on. They rejoined the rest of the young Mountain Movers, and Pastor Matt, in the middle of the multi-purpose room, waved his hands. This is a good group, he said. Don't you think? I just can't say enough good things about you guys. Don't I say that, Mrs. Dernberger? Always how much I love this group? You do, Mrs. Dernberger said, who had stayed for Taco Bell. See, I'm serious. Best part of my week, right here, Pastor Matt said. Other parents began arriving for pickup. They kept their coats on and waited for Pastor Matt to close the meeting in prayer. Let me take a sip before this next thing, sorry. Okay, gang, let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we just come to you tonight in prayer and in fellowship this day you have given us, Lord Jesus. And we thank you, God, for the opportunity we have to be here and worship you with our relationships with each other. And I just pray for each of these mountain movers, Father God, that you may guide them through their own caves, God, and you deliver them and you rescue them because they are your faithful explorers, because you are a kind God. Yes, a just God, and you do not tempt your children. No, Jesus, you merely test us. And the Bible says, the Bible says you will not give us more than we can bear. So I guess that it means if it's happening, then I can bear it. So, amen, Pastor Matt, one of the parents said. Thank you, Pastor Matt, another parent said. You can beat this thing, Jeremy Hauser's dad said. And next to him, Robin Dernberger's mom touched the corners of her eyes with a Taco Bell napkin. Amen, Pastor Matt said, in a voice just above a whisper. Everyone rumbled amen in response, and the fluorescent lights in the multi-purpose room flickered overhead. Coats were zipped, key fobs blorped, and Pastor Matt locked the doors behind us. We sat in the back seats of our warm little cars and drove out into the pale dark, each of us buoyed, at least for the moment, by the unshakable belief that everyone can be saved. That's it.
Wow, that was amazing.
Thanks everybody for having me.
Woo!
Kyle, that was great. And wow. I mean, what do you say after that? So yeah, we're publishing Kyle's book next year. It'll be stacked full of quality stuff like that.
That story will be in it.
That story will be in
that very story, yeah.
So there we go. And I can't really follow that, to be honest. So I'm just going to move on straight to the next person. The next person is Lindz. We're publishing their book as well. It's going to be extremely weird, and they're going to read for a little bit, and that's all I've got to say about that. Lindz, are you there?
I am here. We will be accompanied by the sound of the cat on my t-shirt eating in the background.
Oh God, amazing.
So
amazing.
Thank you. He's been quiet all day and he's just decided now is the time to really chow down. So I have two shorter pieces that I'd like to read for you, and thank you for prefacing it with "it will be weird." It will be weird, and please stay with me. The first piece is called Turducken. Halfway through peeling the carrots for Sunday lunch, Petey announced that he had bred a turducken. The kitchen, busy with humdrum small talk and the chop of various knives, felt immediately silent. You mean you've bought one? Our mother, hands still wet from washing, glanced from the already full oven to my brother and back again. Petey didn't bring anything. When he arrived 2 hours ago, I watched him stamping through the front door, not bothering to wipe his boots, a trail of wet orange leaves behind him like a comet tail, nothing in his hands, not even a bottle of wine. No, Ma. He wiped the back of his hand over his forehead. I mean, I finally figured it out. How in the hell? Dad opened and closed his mouth, searching for words that never arrived. I put down my paring knife. How many cloacas does it have? Petey scowled. One, obviously. It was more efficient that way. Dad sank into the nearest chair. How many hearts? 3. They each need their own. The earlier models didn't survive. Lunch was swiftly abandoned. We piled into 2 cars and drove to Petey's house, past the barn where his lone horse was stabled. We followed him towards a fenced-off enclosure. Despite myself, I was curious. As he swung the door to a little shed open, the pale daylight illuminated a creature only a little wider than an ordinary turkey. The feathers had been shaved away in the front and sides of the bird. Strange bulges rippled and pushed beneath the skin as if it was pregnant. On the beast's back, dark feathers, brown tipped with cream, bristled against the faint breeze. The tail was a magnificent fan, typical of the species. I'd expected it to look pathetic or more monstrous, like a Franken-chicken. Instead, it just looked like a bloated turkey. Oh, Da said, sounding a little disappointed. Oh, I thought they'd be on the outside for some reason. Sweetheart, think critically, Ma chided. The chicken is inside the duck, which is in turn inside the turkey. That's how they're cooked, right? She clapped a hand over her mouth. Oh shit, it can't talk, can it? I shouldn't have said anything about cooking. No, Ma, it's just a bird. The creature's beady eyes were fixed on my mother, and, although they were glazed over, something about its body suggested it was listening closely to every word. You're playing God, son. I don't know about this. Da stroked his beard. Oh, Michael, Ma said, exasperated. When old Mrs. Patterson told us she got LASIK, you said she was playing God. When I brought home candy floss grapes for the first time, you said we were playing God. It didn't stop you eating them. I stand by my point. He didn't directly aggress the grapes, though, so we all knew he'd lost the argument. I leaned closer, staring into the beast's beady little eyes, watching the red wattle wobble as it jerked this way and that. Oh, what do you feed it? Swans? My brother sniffed. That would be inhumane, Claire. You're the one who bred a turducken, bro. Children, Ma said. Perhaps the bickering could wait until after lunch. Lunch from Petey's fridge consisted of half a stale loaf and a wad of dubious prosciutto, the origins of which were never verified to my satisfaction. After eating, if one could call it that, I stepped outside with my mother, who had a cigarette already dangling from her lips. I pulled my smokes out. Can I get a match? She patted her pockets to no avail. I could have sworn I put the box right back here in my pocket. Here. She took my cigarette and lit it from her own, passing the genetic cherry down the family tree. What do you think of this? I mean, really? Well, I think we should support your brother, darling. Don't you think it's screwed up? I think, she blew a ring of smoke, it's a good thing that he's not into drugs and gang crime, and I think we should be grateful that he has a hobby. I stared at the little shed. I could just see the head of the turducken bobbing around inside. Do you think he's playing God? She considered this. I think there are worse people to aspire to be. Big heart know where food and how to mate. Big heart know danger, what to peck, when to run and flap. Middle heart know water. Middle heart always want water. On feet, on body feathers. Middle heart say fish taste good. Paddle feels so good. Please, water, 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 please. Small heart has little fast thoughts like eggs cracking. Small heart know lots. Small heart say we and think and escape. Big heart want to please man who feed. Middle heart want to please man who feed. Small heart don't want to please man who feed. Small heart say danger and fly and freedom. Big heart don't recognize any of those words. Middle heart only think about diving down, green, fish, fish, fish. Big heart content to stay inside. Middle heart see pond, want to swim. Small heart say now, a chance. 3 stretch wings wide. 3 slide peg up with beak. Small heart say yes, like that. Big heart like outside. Middle heart pulls towards pond. Small heart say, not yet. Middle heart quack. Big heart feel middle heart peck inside. Big heart hurt. Small heart say, one thing, then bigger pond. Middle heart say, yes, big pond, fish, please, please pond. Small heart say, promise. Middle heart silent. Middle heart don't know promise. Big heart trust small heart. 3 approach man who feed nest. Small heart say here and box and fire. Big heart peck at box, no fire. Small heart say scratch, claw. 3 lift foot and scratch box, sparks fly. 3 watch dry grass catch fire. 3 watch red fire wriggle towards man who feed nest. Small heart say yes and good and revenge. Small heart say walk quick, walk now, walk away. 3 waddle until man who feed nest looks small. 3 walk until sun hot on feathers. Small heart say, well done, go further. Big heart tired. 3 tired. 3 walk until no sun. Small heart say, further. 3 walk until smell of green, big roar, yellow sand. Middle heart say, now pond? Small heart so sad. Small heart say, now pond. Thank you. I will follow that with something equally as miserable. I warned you about the misery. This one is called Cake by the Ocean, and it's going to be published later this year by The Razor, which is run by Gotha Writers. And it is a very short piece of flash fiction, which is kind of 10 micro fictions, all tied together by individual pieces of cake. There is some sort of narrative. My God, this cat just has been eating this entire time. I was hoping he would stop, and it's just crunching. So I'm super sorry about this in your recording. This is Cake by the Ocean. A piece of birthday cake in Dublin. A red party hat with a snapped elastic band. Limp balloon rags with the number 5 printed on the plastic. A bountiful harvest of wrapping paper. 2 ants doubled over, laughing, spilling fizzy drinks. A raspberry sorbet in Mallorca. Chapped lips, heat shimmers on wavy pavements, thick smears of suntan lotion. A late curfew, a boy who smelled like the liquid mixture used to blow bubbles, the first grains of sexuality trickling downwards. A torn hunk of Victoria sponge on Blackpool Beach, following 2 hot chips and tomato ketchup. Windblown hair, seagulls squalling, syncopated over tinny fairground music, a group of teen friends already growing apart. Something chocolatey and unpronounceable in Normandy. Someone else's headphones, thudding like twin hearts. A girl with a thin eyebrow scar. A long train ride to an unfamiliar warm bed. A promise quickly broken. A cronut in New York. Vaped cotton candy breath. Ice clinking against a frosted glass. Knee bones kissing under a small table. A connection spanning distance and time. Familiar green needle perfume. Nervous-eyed newscasters reading headlines with placid lips. 2 frosted vanilla cupcakes in Shannon. A text received. Babe, I miss you already. Fights in the bus depot. Broken glass underfoot, crunchy and pale as January frost. Streaks of dried brown blood on the linoleum floor. A text received. I'm scared, stay safe. I'm so scared. I wish you hadn't left. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Okay, always remember that I love you. I love you always, forever. I swear, I love, I love. Spiced gingerbread in Dublin city centre. Abandoned cars, empty streets. A hammer hooked into a belt loop, just in case. A lack of cell phone signal. The weasel bite of panic, nipping constantly. Black Forest Gatto in a seaside cafe. Shop doors as wide open as coughing mouths. Occasional twisted bodies scuttling like crabs. No broadcasts on any TV or radio channels. A light drizzling rain. A reason to use the hammer. Twice. 2 moldy shortbread fingers on a ferry. A crumpled map. A badly bandaged wound leaking relief. Calm green ocean on all sides. A pod of dolphins competing for most spectacular jump. A smile, almost. Stale scones in the Scottish Highlands. Fresh milk. A herd of deer more curious than afraid. Loneliness, thinker than the down feather winter coat in the closet. A farmer's gun. Plenty of time to practice. Nothing left but memories. Thank you very much.
That's amazing.
Thanks, babe.
Woo!
Thank you very much. Wow. Okay. So next up was going to be Wilson. Wilson's not feeling very well. He told me an hour ago. That's fine. I asked Gabriel. He said yes straight away. And this is good for 2 reasons. 3 reasons, actually. The first reason is I no longer have to read anything. The second reason is Gabriel reviews the books on Bear Creek. So if you've ever read any Echoes from the Lending Library, that's Gabriel. My alarm's going off. Hang on. Right. And the third reason is Gabriel has a book out. It's called Hymns from the Whipping Post, and it's very good. And you should buy it immediately. And that's my intro. So, Gabriel, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, go nuts.
So yeah, as Stu was saying, I have a new book out called Hymns from the Whipping Post. I'm going to read a quick poem from that, and then I'm going to read a piece of flash. It wasn't from Bear Creek, but I feel like it has the spirit in there somewhere. So we'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when it comes. But this is from my new book, and this poem's called Savior Invasive. Look at me. I've achieved absolute empathy. Now, floating from my body, so my white skin might deliver you from your hunger. I've gifted you your own day, since your days are so numbered, your face displayed, backlit sun rays ahead on stake, overexposure. Above you now, looking down on those lesser than me, whose weaknesses I have supplied, amplified, then defined you by. Would your own McDonald's brand pacify you? My head in the clouds, my bullhorn loud, to drown out the calm of living by example. Thank you. This one is called The Acclimates. It was published last year at Ligeia magazine. Yeah, like I said, I feel like it has the spirit of Bear Creek in there somewhere. I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about. And I'm actually going to, if you all want to read along with me, I'm going to put the link in the chat right here. The Acclimates. Tickets for the West Mountain Vintage Voodoo Rogue Slave Cannibal Encounter could only be purchased on the other internet. There was danger, undocumented disappearances. Same could be said for Mount Everest. No one was stopping you. You just had to look harder for access. For some, it was their first time on that internet. These days, you must look deeper into the dark for an authentic cultural experience. It was at West Mountain, uncharted Appalachia. I could never get that right. A map can't cover every little thing. The group we descend on are mostly white, some ethnic, but all a mix of curious progressives and edgelord vets of dark tourism. All share an all-knowing fraternal glee, a fizz of courage and camaraderie. If any are nervous, nothing is revealed. The tour guide is a man, a black man. He wears an Indian or something headdress of multicolored feathers and skulls. Are the skulls real? Someone asks. My name is Sisyphus, he answers. I'll be your guide. Feel free to ask any questions, but wait until we are done. West Mountain is an imposing presence, but because it's an old coal mine, it won't take long to reach to the top through its circuitry of tunnels and switchbacks. Now we begin, says Sisyphus, leading the group into the trailhead. For the duration of the short 30-minute climb, he doesn't say a word. Even when someone asks him if Sisyphus is his real name. How funny that we are climbing a mountain led by someone named Sisyphus, if people ask him that a lot. West Mountain is among layers of dense green lush and neglected forest. They're not sure how they got there since they were all busy talking, getting to know one another on the bus. When they reach the top of West Mountain, the road has disappeared. It's just all green as far as the eye can see. The mountain is tall, but the trees are taller, and now they are without sky. At the top, there is a large basin or pool, or what is this, someone asks. Gather around and I will explain, says Sisyphus. This is the sacred pot of the tribe where they would make their stews, family style, as you say. Are you a descendant of the tribe, someone asks. Miss, the only tribe I belong to is the human tribe, he says. The group laughs in righteous solidarity. Maybe they're relieved the experience is not that authentic. It would be irresponsible for me to say all lives matter, but I am from the human tribe, your tribe, he says, outstretching his arms, presenting themselves to themselves. Smiles smatter across engaged, giddy faces, a feeling of all is one now that the tribe's drink is being distributed and consumed eagerly, a delightful fermented fruit juice, someone exclaimed as, wow, boozy. This pool is a natural hot spring, he says. When the rogue hybrid slave tribe would make their stews, any liquid removed would be replenished within minutes, a miracle spring. Is it hot, someone asks. It's a hot spring, he repeats. Can you get in, someone asks. Oh yes, it's very lovely, he says, his inflection hillbilly with Creole sophistication. I love your accent, someone says. They were cannibals, right? Someone else says. Impatient Sisyphus might be holding back the good stuff. Yes, they would capture and kill humans, you know, our tribe, he says, serving themselves to themselves again. Leftovers were preserved in the mines below. Some early canning techniques were used as well to sustain them into winter, he says. So the slave tribe believed in human sacrifice then, someone says. Was it to appease a god? Yes, killing and consuming humans was to appease their tribal gods, but they clearly picked up on the brutality of their slave masters who were practicing similar ruthlessness. Some were born into the slave master's atrocity, so they knew no difference, no contrast to the barbarism. Through submission, they learned the goal was to dominate others until they could no longer speak. Cannibalism would be the logical conclusion of dominance. But things are different now, as we know. Please, won't you step inside the spring? Clothing is optional here at West Mountain. Some are trepidatious, change the subject under the guise of processing information. Others disrobe completely, naked for the full effect of submergence, sticking toes in first to check temperature. Satisfied, their whole bodies sink into the soup. Those who change the subject feel major FOMO since they paid the money, so they follow the leaders while Sisyphus remains stoic when he isn't nodding his head for encouragement. Don't worry, if it feels too hot at first, your body will adjust, he says to one woman who is having second thoughts, but she doesn't want to be the only one to doubt the hospitality. All 12 of their bodies do adjust, surrendering to the heat. Quickly, as Sisyphus said, their heads hit the water with a splish-splash stagger until they go face down, bubbles rising as the bodies bob freely, now lighter, free from the weight of spirits. With only their backs exposed from the scalding liquid, it looks like they're playing a game of endurance, yet no one has endured, so that's the end of the game. Three other black men who are dressed like Sisyphus emerge from the corner. They heard the crowd silence as their cue. One holds what appears to be a boat paddle until it begins to stir the soup. Sisyphus leads the other two to the corner to retrieve the tables and place settings. The one who stirs prods the bodies, making sure they're lifeless, cooking evenly, while the others set up the tables, which will soon be covered in expensive white linen cloths, and then large white cloths. The men, only men, who just arrived at the bottom of West Mountain will sit two to each table. Sisyphus begins his 30-minute descent to lead them up. One by one, the new arrivals reach the top, led by Sisyphus. They are men, white men, dressed in expensive suits to match the expensive meal in synergy with their overall expensive taste, which, to their frustration, they must go painstakingly out of their way to savor. Until the meal begins, where all is forgiven, where this forbidden luxury is almost tangible. It's an eternity to their impatience until they hear the sound of the chainsaws. At least it's a start. The broth will now be made, so they are not bothered by the invasive noise. Some even wink to one another. Here it comes, it's getting ready. The only ones who would be ruffled by the screeching machinery are no longer conscious, so they will have no chance to point out that it's inaccurate to the period, to the authenticity they were seeking. Once Sisyphus and his co-workers ladle up the stew to the client's bowls, they are dismissed to leave until cleanup the next morning, so the guests can commiserate in privacy. There is much to talk about and must be done so without prying eyes or ears, even though they have all shared the most intimate exchange, other people's blood. Likely, they are dismissed because they have all just shared the most intimate exchange, other people's money. Sisyphus and his co-workers descend West Mountain, removing their incongruent Indian voodoo headdresses on the way down. They board the bus they came in, now empty. Sisyphus will drive, but since the costumes have been removed, they can now call him Bill. As Bill starts the engine, he sees the new guy in back lean over his seat, stare at the aisle until he vomits. "I'm sorry, Bill. It's okay," he says. "We'll clean it in the morning, and eventually you'll acclimate to that feeling."
Brilliant. I understand the Bear Creek thing, definitely. That has big Bear Creek energy. The sensuality of cannibalism is something I actually write about that a lot. And weirdly enough, if you hadn't have said yes, I was going to read a cannibal story. So But I'm glad that you came and helped out. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Stu. Thanks, everyone.
Obviously, the next one we do, I'll ask Wilson, and Wilson will probably read that. Just want to say something about the press very quickly. Only started it earlier this year, really. Well, maybe Mark probably knows better than me. Mark, when did we start? When did I start the press? About September.
I wrote Hike in April and May last year. So yeah.
Wow, time goes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How I'm running it, it's very artist focused. Everything goes towards the artist. I'm not editing the books. We're not hiring editors, anything like that. Once I put the name to an artist, they have complete control. The contracts are theirs to do whatever they want with. It's 50% up front. I'm trying to run it as honest as I possibly can, because I think that when you're honest in the things that you do, people come through for you. And as you can probably tell by the people reading tonight, we've managed to pick up some good ones. So the funding of the press is through a GoFundMe at the moment. We're doing very well. I'll put the link in the chat. I will also put the link in a tweet. If you have a spare $1, everything goes towards making the beautiful books. I don't know if you can see how high quality the book are on a Zoom meeting, but they're really, the company I use are excellent. Or everything, like I said, with Sarah, etc., everything's being done extremely well. And if you want to help contribute to making beautiful books, you can do. Or you could just buy the book. We've got a Patreon, we've got merch. I'll put it all in the chat. Thank you very much, Gabriel. Next up is Scott. Scott,
I'm wearing some merch. I don't know if you want to point. I'm modeling some merch.
Kyle's got the merch on. Kyle's representing. That logo was done by someone called Meg, who goes under the name of Sludge Work. She's an absolute delight. She does heavy metal logos, and I decided that I wanted like a heavy metal style Bear Creek thing, and that's what she came up with, and it's amazing, and it's now our actual full-on logo because it's so good. Okay, Scott. Scott. Oh, and the maps. Yeah, we've got all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Sorry, I'm terrible at selling things, but you're all much better than I am. Scott sends me weird stories every now and then to Bear Creek. I usually publish them. He has a book out as well, which I just haven't. I just buy everyone's books, basically. That's Scott's book. It's out on Alien Buddha Press. You can buy it from them, I think. Or you can definitely get it on Amazon, which is where I got it. Sorry, Mum. And it's very, very good. And I'm going to shut up now and just let Scott do his stories. Scott, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Thank you for coming, and go.
So I'll only say two things by way of introduction. One, I do like a lot of Twitter writers, and I'm grateful for all of the great artists I found. However, Stuart Buck is a fucking genius, and everything he fucking writes, I fucking love. So this is actually the first fucking thing anyone's ever invited me to do anything literary wise. So Stuart, you're a fucking saint and a champ, and I love you. I will always talk you up whenever I get a chance. Two, this is from an unpublished novel, of which I'm always constantly writing a novel, so I will just shut up and read. So this is excerpt from Awful People, a ghost story, a novel. The section is called Excerpted from Transcript of Interpersonal Interrogation and Statement Aggregation of one Michael Amadeus Green on Redacted 2019. I mean, like, I knew Molly way back in the day, before all the bullshit. And she was just like this party girl, crazy personality, hypersexual, but like, you know, she wasn't trying to fuck around on Frank, you know? Was there any indication that she was unstable at all? Anything about her that seemed amiss? Then, you mean, did we know what was coming? Not exactly. I mean, was there any indication that she was capable of doing something like what happened? Not exactly what happened. Ah, I gotcha. Did she show any signs that she could do a violent thing? Like if required to? Did she seem capable or whatever? That sort of thing. Yes. What primarily interests us is how deep she was in, how far she would go to protect her interests, and how the stress of her lifestyle manifested itself leading up to the incident in question. Look, Molly once told me she had an ongoing sexual relationship with one of her father's friends while she was still in high school, but she presented it as if it were a relationship, not that she was being taken advantage of. Another time, she told me she jerked 2 boys off at once while sitting on a couch between them, which she called going skiing, because she had a cock in each hand like ski poles. Get it? I don't know why I'm mentioning this now. Because it speaks to the way she was, the hypersexual personality type she adopts when talking to male friends. Are you attempting to address what you perceived was her mindset at the time? Yeah, that. She also told me Frank didn't suck her titties the way she liked. He was too timid or something. We were alone in the apartment when she told me that. I think she wanted me to make a move, say something foul so she could get a rush. But I don't think she would actually let me fuck her, you know? She got off on getting close, showing power in that way, exerting her control. Does that sound right? Yeah, I guess. At parties, we'd all chip in for cocaine, but Molly had to be the one to dole it out, inviting people to her room in groups of 3 to take their lines. She had to be the one to control the even distribution of the drug to ensure that A, it lasted, and B, everyone got their fair share. Of course, she was doing lines and bumps and nummies with all of the groups, so essentially she got 3 or 4 times as much as anyone else. No one minded though. How frequently did Frank and Molly have these parties? How often was there cocaine use? I mean, like, not that often. Full-fledged parties with coke and dancing until all hours, that is. There were small gatherings, partying almost every night. And Christmas. Christmas was fucking nuts. You know, Molly loved to wear thongs back then, and low-rise jeans. She liked to wear black thongs that showed off over her jeans. She even wore a black thong underneath her white wedding dress. It showed through the whole day. I think she liked the black thongs because she had a larger-than-life ass. She had small tits, but her ass was really something. I think she thought if she wore the visible thongs, people, men and women I mean, would focus on her ass and not her face or tits. Not that she had a displeasing face, she didn't. Just that I think she thought her ass was her best feature. And when the incident occurred, right, Christmas '09. It was cold and snowing and everyone had tracked some slush onto the kitchen floor where we all took off our shoes and boots. Molly and Frank had cleared out a room in the basement for overflow. There was a dartboard down there. The same dartboard mentioned in the report? Yeah, but there was another one upstairs in the boys' room. That's not mentioned anywhere. No, it's not. But it was there, and I can tell you for certain which dartboard was the dartboard. Like, it all happened, and then the cops asked everyone what happened, and everyone was pretty consistent about a dartboard, but no one bothered to mention that there were actually 2 dartboards. I see. Go on. Well, it was hot in the apartment, and Molly was wearing that super clingy green dress that went down to her ankles that she sometimes wore, but it was like a tank top on top, the kind with the super skinny straps. I remember her nipples were poking out because she wasn't wearing a bra, and I caught her tweaking them. Her nipples. At one point after she did a line, and then she just smiled at me. It was weird. Is this relevant? I don't even know what's relevant anymore. Okay, go on. Well, the party was in full swing and it had to be like 2 or maybe 3 in the morning. My wife. I was married then. Did I mention her before? My wife, Helen? That was one of the reasons it was weird Molly was always being inappropriate with me. Her and my wife, Helen, were close, real close. Like they were always together. They worked at the same restaurant, The Antiquated. And Helen was always over at Molly's, like in between parties and get-togethers. Helen and Molly would just be hanging out, smoking weed, drinking, watching Criminal Minds, shit like that. So that's also why I would never take Molly's bait. There was the thing where I didn't really think she wanted to fuck me anyway. Just got off on seeing men's reactions, how they'd stiffen around her, you know? And then there was the thought that Molly was just trying to trap me, get me to say something like, Well, if Frank won't suck those tits, then fuck you proper, maybe I will. Or something equally gross and wrong, and then go off and tell Helen that I tried to fuck her. Because, and you should really know this about Molly, she's a constant shit starter, fucking professional pot stirrer and shit talker. This seems tangential. It is. What's the relevance to Christmas '09? It illuminates her mindset, speaks to character, and gives insight to how she liked to operate. Proceed. But no, if this goes any further off the rails, I'll have to bring you back to the topic at hand, what we brought you here to talk about. If I think Molly's been rehabilitated. Yes and no. Really, we just want you to remember what you can from the night. We want to collect all the recollections of the aggrieved to try to keep her here. That's not relevant. Please continue. Like I said, Molly couldn't be trusted, which was why when she would start talking to me about her sexual exploits or history, or she would tweak her nipples at me, or bend over and expose her thong, or whatever, I couldn't take the bait because next thing I know, come to think of it, she wouldn't even tell Helen. That wasn't even her style. She'd like tell Arthur or Kim or Jose or Jed, or like maybe she'd get drunk and just let it slip casual, like when me and Helen weren't even there, but the rest of the group was. Yeah, that's what she'd do. And then they'd all spend the night running me down before deciding that Helen just had to know. And Molly would make it seem like she didn't even mean for that to happen, that she was sure that I was an okay guy, but she just had to tell someone because it was just eating at her. Then they'd call Helen and Molly would confess and I'd be fucked. Yeah. And she would look like the good guy. That's how she operated. Also, and I know this for sure, she would shit talk anyone who wasn't currently in the room. Like in the friend group, if you weren't in the room at the moment, at the apartment, I mean, she'd gossip and backstab you. It's just how she was. Still maybe is. I don't really know anymore. She was catty and manipulative? Yeah, that's one way to put it. But I really think that was just a means to an end, which was she fed off the discord and chaos that pitting people against each other inevitably caused. It was a way for her to exert some control over a life that I think was rapidly getting away from her. She was watching her friends blossom after college, some in grad school, others starting real careers. And she could talk all the shit she wanted about loving the way she lived, the choices she made and all that. But it had to be hard to know that certain things from way back made you the way you were, and that the behavior you exhibit, your whole personality really, is just a manifestation of having had real, intense, childhood-ending trauma. Molly wanted control. That's what I think Christmas '09 was about. So, the dartboard, the one from the basement, that is. Yeah, Frank was downstairs in the basement with Arthur, and Molly was upstairs tweaking her nipples and dancing in the living room to Rusted Root or something like that. I was going in between all the rooms because I was a floater at parties back then. I liked to kind of wander around, picking up snippets here and there, jumping into conversations when I felt I could contribute, and then ducking out again. Helen was on the Three Seasons porch, smoking and cooling down. Now you have to understand, while the events of the night are sort of tattooed on my brain, I can't really be sure what the genuine memory.
Been on for like an hour, so I'll listen to it for like an hour more. Now, I love the boy. I'm like so burnt out, you know? I'm so burnt out with this shit in his mouth. It's a buffet, man. It's a fucking buffet. All right, let me listen. Let me listen.
Hi, Mark. Carry on.
I can't really be sure what is genuine memory and what has just become part of my own story, because over the last decade, I've heard everyone's story and internalized their narratives. I understand the complex nature of memory, how it can become fused with the recollections of others. We're just trying to get the gist, a synopsis of events. God, it's been 10 years already. It's fucking weird how time just moves on and everyone goes on to do what they do, and Molly has just been in stasis, at least in my mind, just in a holding pattern, waiting, I suppose. She's been in treatment, and they say she's made incredible progress. Like I said, with Molly, no one fucking knows. Please, continue. Well, I remember going down to the basement after walking through the living room because there was no one there I wanted to talk to. Molly was dancing that way, in that way girls sometimes do, where they hold the hem of their dresses in their hand and sort of pull it up around their knees and thighs. And you sometimes can get a small, fleeting glimpse of underwear. I remember pausing and looking for a moment, and she seemed to see me, and she pulled her dress a little higher. Fuck, it was Dave Matthews. That's what she was listening to, tripping fucking billies. Anyway, I remember she was wearing a black lacy thong. She flashed it at me, and I shook my head and went downstairs. Then what? Well, Frank and Arthur were drinking and not really playing darts, but more like having a heart-to-heart while throwing darts at the board. I got the impression they were into some heavy topic because they kind of clammed up when they came down and then started talking about something trivial. I don't really remember. But I want to say what they were talking about before I came down was what Arthur was going to do when his fiance came back from training at corporate in Des Moines. If he was going to tell her about the cupcake on the side or not. Turns out, as we know now, that Arthur had more than one cupcake on the side. So I was in the basement when it happened, the actual thing. I was right there, front row center. And what was that like? Any after effects? It's fucking terrible is what it was like. And yeah, I had nightmares for like 3 years. Even now, I get an eerie sense of disquiet that I can't quite place. And then I remember, and it's all back, just like it was then, all fresh in my mind and new, like it was being placed there in real time as it's happening again. And it takes months for the aftershocks of even the recollection to recede, and I can forget all about it again. But I never really all the way forget, like it's an omnipresence in my history. But other than that, I'm pretty much fine. So, what happened? To the best of your recollection, I mean. Okay, well, Molly came down like almost right on my heels, and she looked crazed, eyes wide. This is where fused memory comes in, because I could swear on a stack of Bibles that I saw her dose like a half sheet of acid right before the party started, but I can't remember what room that was in or when exactly I saw her do that, or if just Helen or Baker or Jed or one of the other randos told me that, you know? A half sheet is pretty consistent with the recollections. Anyway, she goes, "What are you guys talking about?" and gives Arthur the sideways glance. Then what? Nothing really. Nothing that would set her off. She didn't even wait for someone to answer her. She just walked calmly to the dartboard and grabbed a dart. They were the old type ones, heavy and metal. And then she stabbed Frank right in the fucking neck. He could have lived if she didn't get him right in the vein there, the jugular. Anyway, fountain of blood. Then all hell breaks loose and she starts screaming, "The shed, the shed, the shed." And she was stabbing him over and over in the face and the neck with the dart. Fucking wild. Thank you. That is all.
That was
That was
great.
good.
Thanks, Scott. What a great story. I want to read more of that.
Someone needs to publish that. And you need to do the audiobook, Scott.
Just the this neurotic narration thing that you have going on with like all of your stories. Just all I want to do is find out what the fuck is going on. Basically. Hi, Blake. Yeah, nice to see you. Thank you to Scott. Thank you to everyone who's read so far. Next up is Katy, and I would just like to say a special thank you to Katy for helping me run this, because I do not understand computers, but Katy does. And so between us, we've somehow managed to put this on, but it has mostly been Katy. So thank you to Katy for helping. Katy has a book out. It's this. If you're looking at it and going, "That's an amazing cover," it's because I designed it. Inside is also amazing. I didn't do any of that. It's all Katy. And yeah, she looked fucking incredible as well. So I'm just going to mute myself now and say, Katy, do your thing.
Fantastic. Can you all hear me? Can someone wave at me or give me a thumbs up or something? Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you for that introduction, Stu. The story I'm going to read tonight is going to be published in the next edition of Bear Creek. So you're getting a bit of a Creek preview on it. And it's called The Memory of Blueberries. Mama Guts never had much to say in the way of words of guidance. Just a low rumble, rumble, rumble that to me is the sound of comfort, the sound of home. Before I was pushed sharply out from warm confinement through stinging air and into the cold water with a plop. Whish, says the water as it swirls round the bowl and carries me down into the sewers. Whish, whish. How did I come to be here, aware of the water around me, sensitive to the difference between the warm red dark of Mama Guts and the dim green dark of the sewers? Well, this is Bear Creek. They eat all manner of oddities here, and the residue of some very strange things indeed clings to Mama Guts. Perhaps I can thank the special sprinkles from the Bear Creek ice cream parlour and psychoactive research facility for my awakening, or perhaps one of John Gunn's famous radioactive crabs. In Mama Guts, I was always moving, slowly formed and compacted and pushed towards the moment I would leave her. Here I am in motion too. The current pulls me forwards. Where it leads, I don't know, but there is no turning back. I feel dizzy as I turn slowly in the water. I miss the warm squeeze of Mama Guts and her familiar earthy odour. I am floating through a tunnel. Only my bottom half is submerged in the water. The dry air feels strange on my back. The round walls of the tunnel glisten. They move gently in and out, as if they were breathing. Occasionally, I pass a metal grill or a pipe nosing through an opening in the sides of the tunnel. Below me, shadows make strange shapes. Is it a trick of the light or something moving down there? The surface ripples as I shudder. As I get accustomed to the cold and to the new motion of the water, I realise I am not alone. Others like me are bobbing alongside, carried along on the same current to whatever destination ultimately waits for us. I befriend several. We reminisce about the warmth of home and together come to terms with our new surroundings. One, a fine, pointed soul, studded with undigested blueberries, tells me tales of the comrades who had not made it this far. Some were fat and hard and struggled to keep afloat. Some were too loosely bound to hold their shape and fell apart with a faint cry as they became one with the water. Some had fallen prey to the shadowy shapes, which from time to time dart from the water with a snap and swallow us whole. I find these tales sobering, and for a while I worry about my own composition. Am I too sinking too far beneath the surface? Am I starting to fall apart? Blueberries is swift to reassure me. I am holding my place in the water. My texture is good and firm and supple, and I am in with as much of a chance as any of my companions of making it through the tunnel in one piece. We speculate about what waits for us at the other end. Blueberries speaks longingly of a warm, ripe pool. We will have weathered this trial in the cold and finally found a resting place that will remind us of home. I dream of something quite different. I remember the whish, whish, whish of the water in the bowl, and a thrill runs through me from end to end. I want to hear that sound again. I can't help but hope that maybe the freedom that sound seems to promise is what is waiting for us. As we drift along in this manner, I feel quite content. We are lost in each other's conversation and our own daydreams. The momentum of the current is gentle, but it is enough. I am, finally, I realise, making peace with my new situation. Mama Guts may be gone, but ahead there is something better. Nothing good in this world lasts, however. Movement is eternal. No sooner do we allow ourselves to rest at ease than we hear a rumble. Not the steadily reassuring rumble of home, A rumble that rolls louder and louder towards us, that grows around and below and above us until we are caught in a juddering roar that turns the world upside down. A great rush of water has crashed out of one of the pipes along the side of the tunnel, flooding us with all-consuming chaos. The water churns and swings around us until something terrible happens. I stop moving. I have been pushed by the swirling mass of water flushing into the tunnel, up out of the water against one of the grills at the side. The faint cries of my companions echo off the walls. Lives spent in motion have not prepared us for this. The sensation of being truly and utterly stuck. I try to remain calm. This time it's my turn to reassure Blueberries. Something is bound to change. Perhaps another flush will dislodge us. Blueberries believes me, or at least pretends to. It's hard to keep our equilibrium, however, as time passes and we feel ourselves getting drier and drier. The grill is crusted with hard, silent remnants of those that came before us. We know that this is what we too will become without the water to sustain us. The shadowy shapes below are moving faster now, curious. I try to move myself further up the grill, but my efforts are in vain. A pair of jaws snaps out of the water, a vicious flurry of teeth and spines and saliva. It grabs two of my companions and drags them down into the depths from which it came. A silence settles over my companions. All we can do is wait for the jaws to return. Someone starts to sing, a thin melody that we pick up in harmony, bolstering our spirits against the end. We will face whatever horror awaits together. The calm does not last long. A little while later, the jaws snap up again. We all cower back, but Blueberries stands firm, staring the jaws down with every one of those dark, studded, half-digested remnants. The jaws come down, and Blueberries vanishes beneath the surface. I watch in terror for the return of the grasping jaws, shaking to my core as they come back to the grill. If only Mama Guts knew that her child's journey would end like this. Just as I think I have seen my end, I hear a sound as sweet to me as the churning of Mama Guts herself. Another sluice of water comes washing down the pipe, rising up and past the grill. It washes me and my remaining companions back into the tunnel and onwards. I never knew what comfort there was to be found in friends that know what you have suffered. As we move together, my companions and I find that comfort. We talk about the grill, the jaws, Blueberries, and the others we have lost. Our voices echo off the rounded walls of the tunnel as we carry their memory with us forward to whatever comes next. The tunnel is growing brighter as rays filter grey along its walls. I have a sense, as clear as the rumblings of Mama Guts, that we are near the end now. If I strain myself to listen, I swear I can hear what I long for, the wish, 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 echoing faintly in the ever-growing light.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly moving in more ways
Yes.
than one.
I want to make you cry about a poo. That's
Yeah.
the
Literally
I mean,
made me
look,
cry
I
about a
do-
poo. Don't like
Yeah,
it.
I just want
Amazing.
to hold Blueberries so tightly, you know.
Not too tight.
Not too tight, no. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Katie. That was. I don't know what to say about that. To be honest, I can't wait to put it in Bear Creek and have more people read it. Wow. So that was going to be it, and we were all going to be able to go to bed. However, we're just going to have one last short reading from the man of the hour, because I think that is a great way to sign off. I'm not going to talk again after this, So I would like to say thank you all for coming. I know it's incredibly late. Some places it's like 1:20 where Katy and Mark are in the morning, not even in the afternoon. And Lindz, because they're on the same time zone. Thank you for coming. Look out for the pinned post where you can help support all these amazing artists. I'll put the Ko-Fi in the chat. You don't have to donate if you can't afford it, but if you've got an extra $1, I'll give it to the people who have read tonight. Here is Mark with another excerpt from his new book, Hike, which is published on Bear Creek Press. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming, and I love you. Bye-bye.
Just two quick things before I read a very short bit just to end. One, thank you to Katy for doing all the technical stuff. And thank you so much to Stu for doing all of this. We all love you to bits. We haven't mentioned that you have a book out now, Hypnopony, which you all should read. If you don't have a physical copy, you can get the digital copy for free, I believe. It's on his Twitter. And I'm very excited for Quantum Diaper Punks as well.
I'll put the link in the chat now where you can download it free.
I also thought that I would show you all this, which is the original artwork for Hike that Sarah did. So that is the cover before she colored it. The reason I'm showing you and the reason I'm doing that is because since this was done, people have said, what is the cover about? I don't understand. So I thought I'd read you an excerpt from the end of the book. And thank you so much for coming. All of the readings were fucking wonderful. Please publish that book, somebody. And and stop. I can't believe that Katy made me cry over poo. And on that note, various entrances to the caves were everywhere, dotted across the landscape. The hub, Sai said. We moored the boat and walked toward what looked like the central cluster. It stands for hubris, he continued, laughing softly. Very funny. Where are we going? This way, Sai said, gesturing up and right with his neck. Could you just answer a simple question, just once? As we turned the corner, standing in front of the cave Sai had intended us to enter were the dogs and their handlers, at least 50 of each blocking our route. Thick as a swarm, the dogs patrol the island for uncommon smells. All of the dogs were growling. Together they formed a wall of sound so loud that it was uncomfortable to even approach. We have to go through them, Sai shouted. You said they wanted me. You said they stalked you for a year, Sai. He leaned in. Yeah, but I'm still here. Just stay calm. As we got closer, a few broke from the pack and bolted towards me. As soon as they did, the rest saw what was happening and headed straight for us. Their collective growls stopped and they jumped all over me, sniffing and snarling. They dragged their handlers along with them, and this close, I could see that they were glassy-eyed. The dogs were the ones in charge. Stay calm. They licked any parts of my skin that were uncovered, howling as if asking each other questions, which I suppose they were. A couple of dogs by my feet were getting more and more agitated. Some smell was bothering them, and they started to bark, the sound of it piercing the air. As they did, their handlers did too. I don't think any of them were alive. I think they were just for show. The barks resonated at such a pitch that I felt like my bones were rattling. The other dogs watched and waited. As soon as it had begun, the barking stopped once more, and most of the dogs, seemingly satisfied, grew silent and wandered off. A couple stayed, licking me, and a large one rubbed up against me, eager to be petted. Without me asking, Sai said, "Go ahead." I did, and the dog scampered off happy. You passed their test, which was exactly that you're of benefit to Bear Creek. And what does that mean? That you'll contribute something positive, that you're an asset and not something to be hunted. Contribute what, Sai? He walked into the cave. I stopped moving. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, guys. Love you all. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.